They called her Sister Mercy, but by the time they figured out the woman robbing every coach west of the Divide was dressed in a habit, she was already gone with the gold. The stagecoach rattled into dusty Harmony Gulch, kicking up a cloud of red dirt that momentarily obscured the already faded signs of the town. Passengers coughed and squinted, shielding their eyes as the horses finally came to a weary halt in front of the Golden Nugget Saloon. Among those disembarking was a woman dressed in the simple habit of a nun. "Sister Agnes," she announced softly, her voice carrying a gentle cadence that immediately put folks at ease. She smiled warmly, her eyes crinkling at the corners, a picture of serenity in the rough-and-tumble frontier town. She carried a small, well-worn Bible and a modest carpet bag. Nobody would have guessed that under the starched white wimple and flowing black robes beat the heart of Maria Devine, a thief as clever as a fox and as quick as a hummingbird. She'd chosen the disguise of a nun for its sheer audacity. Who would ever suspect a woman of the cloth? As the townsfolk gathered, offering assistance, Maria accepted with grace. "Just looking for a place to rest my head for the night and offer a few prayers," she explained. Mrs. Higgins, the baker's wife, eagerly offered her spare room. Maria gratefully accepted, setting down her bag with a sigh of contentment. While appearing to settle in, Maria's mind was already calculating. The stagecoach had brought more than just passengers, it carried the payroll for the local mine. And Maria Devine had a plan. That evening, while Mrs. Higgins bustled about downstairs baking bread, Sister Agnes sat quietly in her room. The Bible lay open on her lap, but her gaze was fixed on a crudely drawn map of Harmony Gulch. It wasn't a map of salvation she was studying, but a layout of opportunity. She'd learned the location of the mine's office, a small, fortified building on the edge of town. The payroll was kept in a heavy iron safe, guarded by 2 men, but Maria wasn't deterred. She had a plan, intricate and daring. First, she needed information. Under the guise of offering spiritual guidance, she visited the saloon. She listened to the miners' conversations, piecing together details about their routines, the guards' schedules, and the safe's combination, rumored to be the mine owner's birthday. Back in her room, Maria meticulously prepared. She carefully disassembled a small music box, extracting its delicate gears. These, combined with bits of wire and a sharpened hairpin, would become a lock pick. She also modified her habit, adding hidden pockets and reinforcing the fabric for climbing. Her most ingenious trick was a series of sleeping drafts. Disguised as tonics for weary souls, these would be offered to the guards during her visit to the mine, under the pretense of blessing the operation for good fortune. Maria Devine left nothing to chance. Every detail was accounted for, every contingency planned. The nun was ready to sin. The following morning, Sister Agnes, carrying a small basket filled with blessed tonics, visited the mine. She greeted the guards with a sweet smile and offered them each a drink, praising their dedication and wishing them good health. The guards, flattered by the attention from the seemingly pious nun, gratefully accepted. Within minutes, they were both snoring soundly. Maria moved with practiced efficiency. She used her modified habit to scale the back wall of the office, reaching a small window she'd scouted earlier. The lock pick, crafted from the music box gears, clicked softly as she worked, bypassing the simple mechanism with ease. Inside, the safe loomed large. Maria listened carefully at the door. Hearing only the snores of the guards, she set to work. The rumored combination proved accurate. With a final click, the heavy door swung open, revealing stacks of neatly bundled cash. She quickly stuffed the money into hidden pockets within her habit, distributing the weight evenly to avoid suspicion. Leaving no trace, Maria slipped back out the window, resealed it, and descended the wall. She paused only to retrieve her basket and offer a silent prayer not for forgiveness, but for continued good fortune. Back at Mrs. Higgins's, she hid the money beneath the floorboards, her heart pounding a steady rhythm of success. Sister Agnes was still the most innocent-looking person in Harmony Gulch. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, in a dimly lit office in Denver, Agent Johnson of the Pinkerton Detective Agency stared intently at a series of reports. Each detailed a similar incident, a stagecoach robbery, a seemingly impossible theft, and whispers of a nun bandit who vanished without a trace. Johnson, a man known for his relentless pursuit and keen observation, found himself captivated by the pattern. The robberies were too clean, too precise to be the work of ordinary bandits. There was a level of sophistication, a theatrical flair that intrigued him. He reread the reports, noting the towns, the dates, the amount stolen. A faint scent of lavender mentioned by one witness, a hymn hummed by another, small details that others dismissed, but Johnson saw as threads in a larger tapestry. He pinned the reports to a large map of the Western Territories, a web of red string connecting the incidents. "A nun, eh?" he muttered, stroking his chin. "Playing on faith, a clever disguise." He knew the key to catching this elusive thief was to think like her, to anticipate her next move. He packed his bag, his eyes gleaming with determination. "Time to pay Sister Agnes a visit," he declared, boarding the next train west. The hunt was on. The game had begun. Agent Johnson was coming. 2 weeks later, Sister Agnes stepped off a different stagecoach, this time in the bustling town of Silver Creek. Harmony Gulch was already fading in her rearview mirror. The stolen payroll was converted into untraceable gold certificates, safely tucked away. She left behind only fond memories and a lingering scent of lavender in Mrs. Higgins' spare room. Silver Creek was bigger, more prosperous. A church was being built and the townsfolk were eager for a spiritual leader. Sister Agnes was welcomed with open arms. She quickly established herself, teaching children, tending to the sick, and offering solace to the grieving. Her reputation as a kind and selfless woman grew with each passing day. She rented a small room above the general store, a strategic location that allowed her to observe the comings and goings of the town. The Silver Creek stagecoach carried shipments of silver ore, a far more lucrative target than payroll. Maria began to formulate a new plan, even bolder than the last. This time, she would need accomplices. But finding trustworthy partners while maintaining her pious facade would be her greatest challenge yet. Little did she know, the biggest threat to her plans wasn't finding accomplices, but the relentless Pinkerton agent closing in. Agent Johnson arrived in Harmony Gulch, his eyes scanning the dusty streets. He interviewed Mrs. Higgins, who spoke glowingly of Sister Agnes. "A true angel," she declared, offering Johnson a slice of her famous apple pie. "Kind, gentle, always ready to lend a hand." Johnson, however, noticed a small detail, a faint scratch on the windowsill of the spare room. Too high for a child, too deliberate for an accident. He examined the floorboards, finding faint marks indicating they had been recently disturbed. He moved on to the saloon, questioning the miners. They remembered Sister Agnes visiting, offering blessings and tonics. One miner recalled her asking specific questions about the mine's security. Another mentioned a faint scent of something other than lavender, something metallic, like gun oil. These small inconsistencies fueled Johnson's suspicion. He telegraphed Denver, requesting information on any nuns matching Sister Agnes's description. The reply came back negative. No records existed. The nun was an imposter. He knew she was long gone, but he followed her trail to the stagecoach depot. Learning she'd purchased a ticket to Silver Creek, he smiled grimly. "Silver Creek it is," he said, his resolve hardening. He was one step behind, but closing in fast. He knew that the nun bandit was clever, but Agent Johnson was patient, and he always got his man or woman. Silver Creek buzzed with activity. Agent Johnson, disguised as a traveling salesman, arrived, his eyes immediately drawn to the church under construction. He saw Sister Agnes tending to a worker who had injured his hand. Her touch was gentle, her words comforting. The townsfolk beamed at her, their faces radiating affection. He approached her cautiously. "Sister," he said, tipping his hat, "I'm selling miracle elixirs. Perhaps you'd be interested in a sample for your flock." Maria smiled serenely. "We rely on faith, not false promises," she replied, her gaze unwavering. Johnson persisted, subtly observing her. Her hands, though delicate, possessed a certain strength. Her eyes, though kind, held a hint of steel. He noticed the way she moved with a grace that seemed almost too practiced, too deliberate. He spent the next few days observing her, attending her sermons, watching her interact with the townspeople. He noted her sharp intellect, her quick wit, her uncanny ability to manipulate situations to her advantage. She was a master of disguise, a chameleon blending seamlessly into her surroundings, but Johnson was trained to see beyond the surface. He knew that even the most perfect mask eventually slipped. He just needed to find the crack. He knew she was planning something, and he needed to find out what it was. The Silver Creek stagecoach, laden with silver ore, rumbled along the dusty road. Maria, disguised as a grizzled prospector, waited at a prearranged ambush point. Her accomplices, two down-on-their-luck miners she'd subtly recruited, were hidden nearby. The robbery went smoothly. The guards, caught off guard, surrendered quickly. The silver ore was transferred to waiting wagons. Maria, as the prospector, barked orders, her voice gruff and authoritative. Among the passengers was a young boy named Timmy, traveling with his family from Harmony Gulch. He'd been sick during Sister Agnes's visit, and she had sung him a lullaby. As the prospector barked orders, Timmy frowned. He tugged on his mother's sleeve. "Mama," he whispered, "that man, his voice, it sounds like Sister Agnes." His mother dismissed it, attributing it to the stress of the situation. But Timmy was certain. He recognized the lilt, the cadence, the subtle inflections. Later, as the stagecoach limped into Silver Creek, Timmy ran to Agent Johnson, who was known for his kindness to children. He repeated his story, his voice trembling with conviction. Johnson listened intently, his eyes narrowing. A child's memory could be surprisingly accurate. He thanked Timmy, ruffled his hair, and promised to look into it. He knew this was the crack he'd been waiting for. The perfect disguise was starting to unravel. The net was closing in. Agent Johnson found Sister Agnes tending to the flower garden outside the church. He approached her, his face grim. "Sister Agnes," he said, his voice low but firm, "I need to ask you some questions about the stagecoach robbery." Maria looked up, her eyes wide with innocent surprise. "Robbery? Oh, how awful. I was here all day, tending to the sick." "A young boy recognized your voice," Johnson pressed. "He said it was you disguised as the prospector." Maria gasped, clutching her rosary. "That's absurd, I would never." She began to weep softly, her performance Oscar-worthy. The townspeople, hearing the commotion, gathered around. They glared at Johnson, their faces etched with suspicion and anger. "Leave her alone," shouted Mrs. Higgins, brandishing a rolling pin. "Sister Agnes is a saint." "He's lying," cried another. "She's done nothing but good for this town." Johnson stood his ground, but he was outnumbered and outmatched. He knew he couldn't arrest her without solid proof, and the townspeople would never allow it. He sighed, realizing he had underestimated her influence. "Very well," he said, backing down slowly, "but I'm not finished here. I'll be watching you, sister." He knew he had to be careful. He needed solid evidence to prove her guilt and overcome the town's unwavering faith in her. He had to find a way to expose the nun bandit before she vanished again, but Maria knew the game was up. She had to leave, and she had to leave now. Back in her room above the general store, Maria moved quickly and efficiently. The silver ore, like the payroll before, was already converted into gold certificates, tucked safely inside a hidden compartment in her carpet bag. She packed only essentials, her lock picks, a small pistol, and a change of clothes. The nun's habit would have to be abandoned. Knowing Johnson would be watching the stagecoach and train station, she planned a different route out of town. The old abandoned mine shaft on the outskirts of Silver Creek led to a network of tunnels that crisscrossed the surrounding hills. It was risky, but it was her only chance. To buy herself some time, she created a diversion. She wrote a heartfelt letter to the townspeople, explaining that she was leaving to seek guidance from a higher power, saddened by the accusations leveled against her. She left the letter on the church steps, knowing it would be discovered in the morning, creating a wave of sympathy and confusion. As darkness fell, Maria, no longer Sister Agnes but a woman dressed in simple trousers and a sturdy shirt, slipped out of her room and into the night. She headed towards the abandoned mine, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. She was a fugitive again, but Maria Devine was never one to back down from a challenge. She was ready for the chase. Let Agent Johnson try and catch her. The sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon when Agent Johnson read Maria's letter. He cursed it under his breath. She was gone. He gathered a posse of townsfolk, eager to help capture the nun bandit. Maria, meanwhile, navigated the treacherous mine shafts, her knowledge of the terrain proving invaluable. She knew the hidden passages, the collapsed tunnels, the secret exits. She emerged on a steep hillside overlooking a rushing river. Johnson and the posse were hot on her heels. They tracked her through the mine shafts, their progress slower but relentless. Johnson, relying on his instincts, correctly guessed her destination, the river. The chase was on. Maria scrambled down the hillside, leaping over rocks and dodging thorny bushes. Johnson and the posse followed, their shouts echoing through the hills. Reaching the riverbank, Maria found a small, abandoned raft. She shoved it into the water and jumped aboard, paddling furiously against the current. Johnson and the posse arrived at the river's edge, their horses unable to cross the raging water. Johnson drew his pistol, firing a warning shot into the air. "Stop, Maria Devine, you can't escape." Maria ignored him, her focus solely on navigating the treacherous rapids. She ducked low as another shot whizzed past her head. She was close to freedom, but she knew Johnson wouldn't give up easily. This was a deadly game of cat and mouse, and the stakes were higher than ever before. The rapids carried Maria downstream, further and further away from Johnson and the posse. She spotted a narrow opening in the canyon wall, a small cove offering a chance to pull ashore and disappear into the dense forest. She paddled towards it, relief washing over her. Freedom was within reach. Suddenly, she heard frantic cries for help. Looking downstream, she saw a small family, a mother, a father, and two young children clinging desperately to overturned logs, caught in the same treacherous rapids she had just navigated. Their makeshift raft had capsized, and they were being swept towards a series of jagged rocks. Maria knew she had a choice to make. She could continue towards safety, disappearing into the wilderness, leaving the family to their fate, or she could risk everything to save them. Her hands tightened on the paddle. The image of the children, their faces filled with terror, flashed before her eyes. She remembered singing a lullaby to Timmy in Harmony Gulch, the feeling of wanting to protect him. Hesitation flickered across her face. It was a moment of conflict, a battle between her instinct for survival and a flicker of something else, something that Sister Agnes had awakened within her. She knew what she had to do. Maria Devine turned the raft around and paddled with all her might towards the struggling family. With skillful maneuvering, Maria reached the family. One by one, she pulled them onto her raft, their faces etched with gratitude. The rapids threatened to capsize the overloaded raft, but Maria held steady, guiding them towards the shore. Agent Johnson and the posse watched in stunned silence. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. The notorious nun bandit was risking her life to save a family. As Maria helped the last child onto the riverbank, Johnson waded into the water, his pistol holstered. "Maria Devine," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of admiration and resignation. "You're under arrest." Maria didn't resist. She looked at the family, safe and sound, then turned to Johnson, her eyes filled with a strange mix of defiance and acceptance. "I won't deny who I am," she said, her voice clear and strong, "but I did what I had to do." The posse approached, their initial anger replaced with confusion and respect. They had come to capture a villain, but they had witnessed an act of heroism. Johnson placed the handcuffs on Maria's wrists. She didn't flinch. She knew her life as a free woman was over. But as she looked at the grateful faces of the family she had saved, she knew she had made the right choice. The nun bandit was caught, but in that moment, Maria Devine had finally found something worth more than gold. As Maria was led away, the townspeople of Silver Creek watched in stunned silence. The revelation that Sister Agnes, their beloved nun, was a notorious thief shattered their perception of reality. Some wept, others whispered in disbelief, and some simply stared in stunned silence. The image of her saving the family, however, lingered in their minds, a complex and contradictory portrait of a woman who was both a criminal and a hero. Agent Johnson, escorting Maria to the stagecoach, paused. "You know," he said, his voice softer now, "you could have escaped. You were almost free." Maria looked at him, a faint smile playing on her lips. "I know," she replied, "but some things are more important than freedom." Johnson nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. He had spent weeks hunting her, driven by a relentless pursuit of justice. But he had also witnessed her capacity for compassion, her willingness to sacrifice herself for others. As the stagecoach pulled away, carrying Maria towards an uncertain future, Johnson tipped his hat in a silent salute. The nun bandit was gone, her reputation forever tarnished. But Maria Devine, the woman who had chosen to save a family over her own freedom, had left an indelible mark on the town of Silver Creek. It was a bittersweet ending, a testament to the complexities of human nature, and a reminder that even the most cunning thief could find redemption in the most unexpected of places.